is in like full control. I would hope she's in full control, but I don't know because I'm hearing some stories about donors that are pushing things. I'm hearing about the pressure that's even happening with planning this event. And nope, you're right. You got me. I was not invited to speak alongside President Trump and JD Vance on the stage with Tucker Carlson at a memorial.
A new development has pushed the discussion surrounding Charlie Kirk's death into a different phase. The unexpected voice entering the conversation is Joe Rogan. For months, commentary from Candace Owens argued that the official account of Charlie Kirk's death contained unanswered questions. According to her statements, certain elements of the public narrative did not align and suggested that additional information may exist beyond what had been publicly released. During that period, much of the reaction dismissed those claims as speculation. Critics labeled the accusations exaggerated and argued that the theories relied heavily on conjecture rather than verified evidence. The situation shifted when Joe Rogan publicly addressed the topic. Rogan did not approach the subject cautiously or indirectly. Instead, he expressed direct skepticism about the official explanation surrounding the events of September 10th. According to remarks attributed to Rogan, the widely accepted version of events did not fully make sense. He suggested that there may be more happening beneath the surface than what the public had been told. Rogan also indicated that the answers to those questions might involve individuals who were much closer to Charlie than many observers initially assumed.
There's the other thing. They said that he took it apart and then put it back together again. Shut up. Do you know how much time it would take to do that if you were highly skilled?
To disassemble a gun.
To disassemble a rifle so that you can get it in a backpack. And by the way, not going to fit.
Not going to fit in a backpack.
And then somehow or another reconnects it once he gets off the roof? What? Like, you're telling me that this kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? Like, that's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof. He jumps down 14 feet, jumps off of the roof and lands, whether or not he's even the guy who shot him. Maybe he thought he was going to shoot him.
When Rogan comments on controversial topics, the reaction tends to spread quickly. His audience spans millions of listeners across podcasts, social media, and online video platforms. Because of that reach, his entry into the discussion changed the tone of the conversation. Individuals who previously dismissed the claims began reconsidering the possibility that additional questions might deserve examination. Rogan is not widely known for inserting himself into sensitive situations involving political figures without careful thought. Observers often note that when he speaks about complex issues, he usually does so after reflecting on the topic extensively. These remarks have become part of the broader discussion now circulating online. As attention grows around Rogan's comments, many observers are asking the same question. What exactly is being suggested, and why do some commentators believe the implications could be far more serious than previously assumed? According to analysts examining the situation, one of the reasons the discussion continues expanding is that the official narrative surrounding Charlie Kirk's death has long contained gaps that remain unresolved.
First of all, there was that one guy who was the decoy. All right, so you got this guy who's an older guy who starts yelling out. Didn't he take his pants down? He took his pants down. This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston bombings.
All the hits.
He called in a fake bomb at another place. And then he did this at this thing. Right after, so somehow or another, this guy has the state of mind that the moment someone gets shot, he yells out and says, "I did it."
To understand the current debate surrounding the death of Charlie Kirk, it is necessary to revisit the beginning of the timeline. Context remains important because many observers have only encountered fragments of the story rather than the full sequence of events that shaped public discussion. Charlie Kirk was fatally shot on September 10th at Utah Valley University. That central fact is not disputed. What has remained far less clear are the surrounding circumstances, how the incident unfolded, who may have been involved, and why certain aspects of the investigation have appeared inconsistent since the earliest hours following the shooting. According to accounts circulating in public commentary, unusual developments began almost immediately. Local law enforcement initially responded to the scene, which is standard protocol for an emergency of that magnitude. Shortly afterward, however, federal authorities reportedly assumed control of the investigation. Candace Owens was among the first public figures to highlight that transition. She noted that rapid federal involvement in a case originally handled by local police can sometimes indicate broader implications, such as national security concerns or situations involving influential individuals whose actions could shape how information is released. Owens also drew attention to another detail discussed online: reports that a military aircraft had landed in Utah shortly before the shooting occurred. She referenced the claim shortly after news of the incident became public. At the time, many observers dismissed the comment as speculation made in the early chaos following a breaking event. However, as the investigation progressed and new questions continued to surface, some commentators began revisiting that early observation with renewed interest.
Is in full control. I would hope she's in full control, but I don't know because I'm hearing some stories about donors that are pushing things. I'm hearing about the pressure that's even happening with planning this event.
Another point repeatedly raised involved the question of transparency. If the primary goal of investigators was to identify and apprehend the person responsible as quickly as possible, one argument suggested that releasing available visual evidence, such as photographs or surveillance stills, might have accelerated public assistance. Instead, critics claim that limited information was released in the early stages of the investigation. That perceived lack of immediate transparency became one of several issues that fueled ongoing debate about how the case has been handled from the beginning. Another major point of discussion centers on how information from the scene was handled after the shooting involving Charlie Kirk. Critics have argued that a faster release of surveillance footage could have dramatically changed the pace of the investigation. In many modern cases, large volumes of publicly released images and video clips allow online communities to assist in identifying suspects or reconstructing timelines. Supporters of this view claim that if every available surveillance angle and recording had been immediately shared, crowdsourced analysis across the internet might have accelerated key discoveries. However, according to several commentators, that did not happen in this situation. Instead, information appeared to emerge gradually, with updates released in a controlled and carefully managed manner. Candace Owens openly criticized this approach. She argued that if investigators had prioritized rapid identification of the shooter, authorities could have released every available image and video recording immediately. From her perspective, public collaboration could have helped solve the case far more quickly. The absence of such transparency, she suggested, raised questions about investigative priorities. The conversation gained even more attention when Joe Rogan began discussing similar concerns. Rogan publicly stated that certain elements of the timeline and the official narrative surrounding the event appeared inconsistent. During one discussion, Rogan reflected on how confusing investigations can sometimes become when unusual details emerge all at once. He suggested that in complicated cases, multiple strange events can cloud the overall picture and make it difficult for observers to determine what truly happened.
And then you say, oh, he assembled it and he reassembled it. Like, okay. If I wish I was a cop, I'd sit in a room like, this story is horseshit. Like, yeah. None of these things make any sense to me. It's all part of the plan. If you want people to lose all faith that anyone is going to solve anything, you add a bunch of, if you're going to kill a guy, you add a bunch of other wacky that doesn't make any sense, and you spam it out there at the same time. You leave a gun that didn't do it out in the woods. You do a bunch of shit like that.
You have an old man put his out and yell, I did it, I did it.
Yeah, you get some kid who has a boyfriend who's a furry, and you talk to him on Discord. I think he's a furry.
Another element Rogan highlighted was the role of a man identified in reports as George Zen. According to accounts circulating online, Zen allegedly appeared at the scene and shouted that he was responsible for the shooting, creating immediate confusion among bystanders and investigators. At first glance, such behavior might appear to be the unpredictable reaction of a bystander during a chaotic emergency. In large crowds, unusual actions are not uncommon when panic spreads quickly. However, some commentators have pointed to claims that the individual had previously been involved in other disruptive incidents related to law enforcement or public disturbances. These reported past incidents have led to further debate among observers who believe the detail deserves closer examination. Because of this, Rogan raised a central question now circulating across multiple discussions. Was the confusion created at the scene simply a coincidence, or does it represent a more complicated element within the broader timeline of events? Another major point raised in ongoing discussions involves the presence of a specific individual at the scene. Commentators have questioned the statistical likelihood that someone with a controversial background would appear at the exact moment Charlie Kirk was shot and then immediately create confusion that disrupted the initial law enforcement response. The individual frequently referenced in those discussions is a man identified in reports as George Zen. Critics argue that the timing of his actions, allegedly shouting that he was responsible for the shooting, created immediate uncertainty among bystanders and investigators. Observers questioning the situation ask whether such timing represents coincidence or whether it may have unintentionally complicated the early investigation. Attention has also focused on the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson. During public discussions, Joe Rogan raised the possibility that Robinson may not necessarily have been the primary planner behind the incident. Rogan suggested that in complex cases involving violence, the individual identified as the perpetrator is not always the person who conceived or organized the broader sequence of events. Such speculation remains unproven, but the discussion has drawn significant public interest because of Rogan's large audience and influence. Another frequently cited point involves claims about George Zen's previous encounters with authorities during disruptive public events. Critics argue that the pattern of unusual appearances at tense situations raises questions about the probability of his presence during this particular incident. While those claims continue circulating online, they remain part of ongoing debate rather than verified conclusions. Beyond the events at the scene, the conversation has increasingly shifted toward financial matters connected to Turning Point USA. Both Rogan and Candace Owens have highlighted financial developments that occurred shortly before Charlie Kirk's death. According to reports, roughly 8 days prior to the shooting, Charlie Kirk circulated an internal memorandum directing senior leadership to begin a comprehensive internal audit of the organization's finances. The audit reportedly aimed to identify inefficiencies, reduce unnecessary spending, and carefully review how funds were moving through the organization. For some observers, that financial review has become a key detail within the broader timeline surrounding the events that followed. Supporters of Candace Owens argue that many of the questions she raised immediately after the death of Charlie Kirk are now receiving renewed attention. Looking back at the broader timeline, several issues she highlighted early on have continued to surface in ongoing discussions. Among those points were the rapid federal involvement in the investigation, the limited release of visual evidence from the scene, reported financial irregularities within Turning Point USA, and claims of pressure from wealthy donors connected to the organization. At the time those concerns were first raised, critics strongly dismissed them. Owens faced accusations of promoting conspiracy theories and was widely criticized for questioning the official narrative while the investigation was still unfolding. However, the tone of the conversation shifted when Joe Rogan publicly expressed skepticism about the official explanation of the events surrounding Charlie Kirk's death. Rogan stated that certain elements of the story appeared inconsistent and suggested that the full context of what happened may not yet be fully understood by the public. Because Rogan hosts one of the most widely listened to podcasts in the United States, his comments significantly expanded the reach of the debate. Observers note that Rogan rarely addresses politically sensitive criminal cases unless he believes there are legitimate unanswered questions worth discussing. For that reason, his remarks prompted many listeners to revisit the concerns that Owens had raised earlier in the timeline. Despite the increased attention, the case itself remains unresolved in the court of public opinion. Each week, new commentary, documents, and claims continue circulating online, adding additional layers to the discussion. Some commentators believe the ongoing debate reflects deeper questions about political influence, organizational finances, and investigative transparency. Others caution that many of the circulating claims remain unverified and should not be treated as confirmed facts without formal evidence. What remains clear is that the conversation surrounding Charlie Kirk's death continues evolving. As additional information emerges, observers across the political spectrum are closely watching how the story develops and whether new verified details eventually clarify the many questions that still remain.